Yo, what's up, nerds? It's MTG Man, and yes, I mentioned in the last video, I will be talking about the mindskinner. Um, just design-wise, right? Let's look at this alternate art. I'm kind of getting definitely Nightmare. I was almost thinking like Nightmare on Elm Street, because the claws almost look like Freddy Krueger's gloves, but yeah, I don't know if that's actually what this is a reference to or not. It definitely got some spooky teeth, but anywho. So it can't be blocked. It's a 10-1 for 3 mana, and if a source you control would deal damage to an opponent, prevent that damage and each opponent mills that many cards. Now, there are only so many, damage spells, quote-unquote, in blue. So this deck actually has, some mill sub-themes, some artifact sub-themes, and of course it's going to be dealing damage either way, but, milling through damage is going to be what you're trying to win. Now, if you notice, it says deal damage to an opponent, prevent that damage, and each opponent mills that many cards. So if you have a way to deal, 5 damage to each opponent, that's 15 cards milled total each player, because it triggers off of each damage. So, one opponent takes 5 damage, each player, or each opponent mills 5 cards. Another opponent takes 5 damage, each opponent mills 5 cards. So we're trying to hit as many opponents as possible, and, mill them out. So Ruin Crab, whenever a land enters, each opponent mills 3 cards. This is just another way to mill cards. Chief Engineer, this deck has this interesting artifact sub-theme, because there are a lot of good artifacts that can deal damage. So yeah, artifact spells have Convoke. This is just going to let you cast your artifacts cheaper. Ethereum Sculptor makes your artifacts cost 1 less. Silent Hall Creep also can't be blocked. When it deals damage to a player, choose one that hasn't been chosen. You can put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, draw a card, or it becomes a copy of another target creature you control. There's a lot of things you want to copy. It's just, I liked it. I liked what it did in the deck. So, Vantress Gargoyle, it's an artifact. It can't attack unless the defending player has 7 or more cards in their graveyard. But, I mean, they're probably going to. And, I mean, also, it's a 5/4 flyer for 2 mana. So, that's just going to keep your opponents milling. Bruvak the Grandiloquent, or Grandiloquent, whatever. If an opponent would mill 1 or more cards, they mill twice that many cards instead. So you just mill twice as fast. Burnished Heart, it's like okay ramp, and it's an artifact, so it made it in. Chrome Host Sea Shark creates artifacts. It is also just, you can then incubate those, and have those 0/0s with counters on the field. They can swing in for damage, that can cause mill, whatever. Emery gets, mills 4 cards. Then you can choose an artifact in your graveyard and cast it this turn. It's just a way to get things back, whatever. Riddle Keeper, whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller puts the top 2 cards of his or her graveyard, or of his or her library into the graveyard. This is gonna, de-incentivize your opponent from attacking you. Psy Master Thopterist, whenever you cast an artifact spell, you create a 1/1 with flying. 1/1s, swing in, more damage, more mill, artifacts. Spellseeker, there's a couple instants and sorceries you really want to get. So this will just help you get them. Enduring Curiosity, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. We want to be able to draw so that we can just do more. Plus, Mindskinner is unblockable. We have a couple ways to make flyers, things like that. So theoretically, we'll be getting in for damage and drawing cards. Giggling Skitter Spike. Whenever it attacks, blocks, or becomes the target of a spell, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So if you monstrous it, it's a 6/6, right? So that's 6 damage to each opponent. That's 18 total cards milled. Well, each opponent mills 18 total. So it's just another way to mill cards. Deal direct damage, that sort of thing. Urza Lord High Artificer just goes with them. It goes with the artifact stuff. Vidalcan Archmage, whenever you play an artifact, draw a card. Just gonna help you draw, and it's gonna go with the artifact stuff. Terrazian Mindbreaker, when it attacks, defending player mills half their library rounded up. It's another way to make your opponent mill, plus it's an artifact. Thought Monitor is going to draw you 2 cards. Soul Ring, Ankh of Mishra, so it deals 2 damage to anyone who puts a land into play. However, that's just like each opponent's turn, each opponent mills 2 cards, basically. Arcane Signet, Howling Mine, I just needed more ways to draw cards. Lightning Greaves to protect the mindskinner. Mesmeric Orb is another way to make opponents mill. Mind Crank is another way to, like, if they choose to attack each other, they'll mill more cards. I mean, they'll probably choose to attack you once Mind Crank hits the battlefield, but, you know, Psychogenic Probe, whenever a spell or ability causes a player to shuffle his or her library, it deals 2 damage to him or her. It just says them at this point, but, like, whatever. Basically, you know, whenever they do a fetch land, every time they search their library, you'll just deal 2 damage. Each opponent will mill 2 cards instead. It's just another way to keep them milling every turn. Sky Diamond, Sure Strike Trident. So you can attach this to the Mindskinner and have it deal 10 damage to target player. So it's just a quote-unquote safer way of attacking. I mean, it can't be blocked anyway, but there are certain cards that, like, kill tapped... Well, it'll be tapped anyway, but that kill, like, attacking creatures or whatever. Swiftfoot Boots, Aetherflux Reservoir, which I know may seem odd. However, if you get to 50 life, you could pay 50, deal 50 damage to target player, right? And then that player, and, well, each opponent at that point, each opponent will then mill 50, so there's a good chance that might just kill someone. Dingus Staff, whenever a creature is put into graveyard from play, it deals 2 damage to that creature's controller. So, I mean, it's just it's another option to deal damage. Grafted Exoskeleton is some spicier. I mean, the Mindskinner is a 10-1 that can't be blocked. Give it Infect, it just kills players, basically. Magnetic Mine, whenever another artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, Magnetic Mine deals 2 damage to that artifact's controller. Yes, that could hurt you too, but this is going to hurt the, like, treasure, clue, food type players. I mean, almost every deck is playing treasure of some sort at this point, so it's just a way to burn out your opponents. But not really burn, you're milling them. So, Talon of Pain, whenever a source you control other than it deals damage to an opponent, put a charge counter on it. I just realized that the damage is prevented because of the Mindskinner. So we're going to cut Talon of Pain. I think we're going to put in, like, Cold Steel. We're just going to get another ramp piece, because why not? Alright, Thread Dynamo, just a good artifact that adds mana. Night Paladin, when it enters, it deals 4 damage to each opponent. So, because of the Mindskinner, they'll mill 12 cards each. Mind's Eye is just another way to draw more. Cyber Ship, when it deals combat damage to a player, put the top 2 cards of that player's library onto the battlefield face down under your control, and they're 2/2s. Plus, it's an 8/8, it's just gonna swing in for damage, make each player mill 8 instead, and then it's pretty solid. Keening Stone, just another mill artifact. You'll notice this deck has a lot of high mana artifacts, that's why we have some of the artifact support. Reaver Titan. When it attacks, it deals 5 damage to each opponent. So instead, each opponent is going to mill 15 cards. Plus, if it connects, that's another 10 cards each. So, like, that's a quarter of their library if it swings in and is unblocked. Sphinx Bone Wand. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery, you can put a charge counter on it. If you do, it deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target creature or player. Just hit your opponent for like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's just going to add up for cards milled. Wondrous Crucible, sure, it gives your permanence ward, which is pretty good. And at the beginning of your end step, mill 2 cards and then exile a non-land card at random from your graveyard, and you can copy it and cast it without paying its mana cost. Just a way to gain more value off of what's in your graveyard. One of the cards you might want to get with Spellseeker is High Tide. It's probably going to be your best way to cast some of your big artifacts. Plus, Mindskinner is blue, 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 so it'll just help you recast it. The deck only plays islands. Just a heads up. Mystical Tutor, so you search your library for an instant or sorcery, maybe High Tide, and put that card on top. Pongify's removal, Rapid Hybridization's removal, Ray of Erasure only mills 1 card, Thought Scour only mills 2, but we also just need cards that we can, like, cycle through. Reality Shift is removal. Desynchronization returns each non-land permanent that's not historic to its owner's hand. So you keep your artifacts, you keep the mindskinner, and your opponents lose all non-land permanent that's not historic, right? So you'll probably keep most of your board, and your opponents will probably lose most of theirs. Access Denied counters target spell, and you create X 1/1s, where X is that spell's mana value. Those 1/1s have flying, they'll get in, they'll mill more. Mind Bomb deals 3 damage to each player, and each player may choose and discard up to 3 cards to prevent that amount of damage. This doesn't seem great at first, right? But when you look into it, unless opponents start discarding cards, this is a 1 mana, each opponent mills 9. Pretty good. Chart a Course, draws 2 cards, then discard a card unless you attack this turn. I just need ways to draw more cards. Plus, the Mindskinner is unblockable, so you probably have no reason not to attack. Borrowing 100,000 arrows. You draw a card for each tapped creature target opponent controls. They're probably attacking you. They probably tapped out attacking you, and then you draw like 4 or 5 cards off this. Fractured Sanity. Each opponent mills 14 cards, or you can cycle it, and then each opponent just mills 4 cards. Whatever you need, if you need more cards in hand or whatever. Show and Tell. Each player may put an artifact, creature, enchantment, or a land card from their hand on the battlefield. This is how you can play some of those high mana artifacts for basically 3 mana. Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Sure, this isn't mill, but each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until that player has exiled cards with total mana value 20 or more. This could be like 4 cards. This could be like 20 cards. I've had this hit like 20, 25 cards in a different deck I was playing, of course, but like it really depends on how your opponents build their deck, because you can just go, 2 mana, 1 mana, land, and just keep going over cards. Thoughtcast, you draw 2 cards. It's just more draw. Court of Cutting, so you become the Monarch, and at the beginning of your upkeep, any number of target players each mill 2, or if you're the Monarch, each of those players mill 10 instead. Because you have an unblockable creature, there's a good chance you'll be able to take the Monarchy. Holding on to it might be hard, but you see what you can do. Curator's Ward is a way to give the Mindskinner hexproof. Plus, since it's historic, if it does die, you'll draw 2, so it's still pretty solid. Soul Barrier. Whenever target opponent successfully casts a summon spell, Soul Barrier deals 2 damage to him or her. That player may pay 2 to prevent this damage. Technically, they could just keep paying, but if your opponent has a creature-heavy deck, this is just 2 damage or more every turn, so it could just be a way to punish all your opponents. Reconnaissance Mission. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage, you draw a card. Just more way to draw and keep your hand full. Corrupted Conscience. Sure, you can take a creature your opponent controls, or you can just give the Mindskinner Infect, because it's a 10/1 unblockable creature, and 10 Infect damage will kill any opponent. It's just another way to win the game without milling out. And then 36 Islands, because like I said, this deck only plays islands. So we'll play a test hand here. I kind of want to keep this. I kind of don't. I think we do keep it. I think we go Island. Island. Oh, we should have drawn for turn 1. I always forget to do that. Chart a Course, draw 2, then discard 1. I think we discard Soul Barrier. I think it's the worst card in the hand. Island, Mindskinner, Island, Bruvac, Swing. It deals 10 damage. That damage is prevented. They mill 10, but because of Bruvac, they mill 20 instead. Island, we go... I guess technically we could just go Mindbreaker for its... oh wait, no, that's Unearth. That's not Prototype. Never mind. Silly me. Magnetic Mine to punish them. They mill 20 again. They mill 28. they mill 20 again, and you probably won the game. Bruvak is a little busted, so we're just going to try a hand without Bruvak. So we'll go Island, Arcane Signet. I think, honestly, here, right, we might... I kind of want to play Swiftfoot Boots first. I want to, so that we can give the mindskinner haste and protection. So I think we're going to go Vidalcan Archmage. Then we're going to play an island for turn. Go Swiftfoot Boots. Draw a card. I mean, I guess technically we could play the mindskinner, but we can't pay the equip. So we're just going to play Burnished Heart. Draw a card. Go to turn. Oh, and then we basically won. So, mindskinner, equip it, swing, they mill 10, and then crafted exoskeleton, draw a card. I mean, we can't equip it this turn, but we equip it next turn, and then we just take out an opponent, whoever we attack. Last hand. You know what? Just keep. We've been taking these keeps, so island. Yeah. All right. Mindskinner. I guess so. We go Mind Bomb. Each opponent mills 9. We're gonna cycle Fractured Sanity so we can draw. We'll play that island. We'll swing for 10. They each mill 10. Honestly, Soul Barrier keeps coming up as less useful than I think it is, but we'll go Thran Dynamo. And then I think next turn we run out Knight Paladin. Yeah. No. Silly me. Knight Paladin. 10, and then I guess like either I think we crew Knight Paladin, and then we swing. It deals 4 damage to each opponent, so they each mill 12, and then it deals 6 more damage, assuming it's unblocked. So then they each mill 18 total. It's about building up damage over time. There's definitely cards in here like Mine or Dingus Staff or, Soul Barrier, where it's only going to be as good. Oh, Soul Barrier's been eroded. So whenever an opponent casts a creature spell, that's way better. Okay. Because this says target opponent, that makes it seem really bad. So yeah, whenever an opponent casts a creature spell, they lose 2, or they take 2 damage. So, I mean, it's just a consistent way to keep them milling. But yeah, I thought the Mindskinner was pretty interesting. Sure, the budget of 192 is a little high here, but there's probably, like, you cut Bruvak, you cut Spellseeker, you cut Urza. I think the artifact sub-theme definitely adds, cost to the deck. But it was either I build just unblockable creatures, and then, like, reconnaissance, reconnaissance mission, like, abilities, like Coastal Piracy and whatever, so that you just keep attacking with your unblockable creatures and then drawing more cards. Or I build it with the artifact sub-theme, because I think the artifacts are going to give you more of that damage that the Mindskinner wants, that you can't really get because you're stuck with mono blue. Like Reaver Titan coming, attacking, and, making opponents mill 15 each is definitely something that, just blue can't do. So I just thought an artifact sub-theme would be way more interesting than, just building unblockable creatures. But if you want to see that kind of build, let me know in the comments. As always, let me know what Duskmourn commanders, or just general commanders, you want to see, I've mentioned before, probably not doing Valgavoth. I think it's boring because it's too high mana. The Wandering Rescuer is, like, okay, but I'm just not that intrigued by it. Tyvar, I like the art on that, but, like, even if you read it, it's, like, kind of meh. I feel like there was definitely some interesting cards in Duskmourn, but not too many. Well, not that many, but I mean, there's certain legendary creatures that just don't make that great of commanders. Like Marvin's good in the 99, but I don't see Marvin as a good commander. Or like, um, I hate that the Swarm Weaver isn't a bad commander, but I hate that it has nothing to do with Scarecrow. Like Typal or whatever. Um, and then a lot of them just kind of like do their own thing, and I don't really find them that interesting. I thought about building, a Marina Vendrell Rooms deck, but I feel like a lot of people are already doing that. But if you want to see that deck list, let me know. Or like a Victor enchantment deck. But that's all for today. This has been MTG Man, signing off. Just let me know what y'all are thinking, like and subscribe, all that.